Well, hi, Mom.
Hi, son. How are you?
I'm well. Do we ever talk like that? Hello, Mother.
We never talked that way.
Yeah.
This is kind of funny. You started over.
No, this is
This
gold.
is so funny.
Just address me as son.
I think this tea that we're drinking has something laced in it or something. This is kind of funny.
So, it is Mother's Day, as we
Hi,
both
Jake.
know. Hi. We established our greetings.
Yes.
So,
Well, here we are again. This is pretty cool.
dead people.
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
So, I always say you can talk to dead people, and is that what you would say, or is it more like you get messages from them rather than a conversation with someone that's dead?
Well, there's different kinds of talking to dead people is coined mediumship. So, like, I'm the medium, which means I'm the communicator between someone who's passed and someone who's living.
So you're like a vessel rather than a...
Yeah, it's kind of like the old telephone operators that used to talk between the two parties that were talking to each other. Sometimes the switchboard can really tap into the conversation. So with mediumship, what I do is it's a telepathic communication because the person who's passed, even though they're not here in their physical body, they still have a very much of a living spirit, living soul, if you will. And they have the same personality, basically. So, and they love to just communicate through medium by telepathic communication, which means from their mind or their energy to mine, they'll give me pictures or ideas, or sometimes even I'll feel their emotions that I can relay to someone else. And it's called evidential in that they'll be very specific in giving me something that the client or the person I'm reading for will recognize.
Yeah, and that's where, like, because I'm so skeptical of all that you convince me that if you know something that there's no way of you knowing, how else would you know that?
And that's what I ask. I'm actually communicating. I mean, I oftentimes will have a vision in my head of what they look like. Sometimes I've even drawn them, but I don't do spirit. That's called spirit art.
I want to see your art.
But I haven't done that in a really long time. But I can sort of get an idea in my head what they look like, and that's the clairvoyance piece. But they'll give me specific information about something. I'm trying to think. There was something recently that it was somebody. When I do sit down with doing a reading, so I just bring through the people. I can't make someone come through. It's sort of like you and I getting invited to a party and we decide whether or not we're going to go. Well, the spirits on the other side can decide whether or not they want to come through for the person that I'm sitting for. It's up to them. It's a law of free will.
Are there times when you just sit there and nothing happens?
There's always something or somebody that comes through, but it's not always necessarily what the person, who the person wants. Sometimes it could be somebody totally different, but I always feel guided by, spirit or whoever we believe in, that whoever it is that comes through is meant to be for that person. They may have wanted to connect with their grandmother, but it could be their best friend that died 20 years ago that they've missed horribly and have a strong connection to. And it brings healing to the person I'm talking to and to the spirit on the other side. They're still going through healing. It's their soul, so they're still going through healing. I think I forgot what your question was.
I got distracted by the heater that just turned on. It's a spirit talking to us right now. Well, I have a lot of questions about this subject, which I think most people do.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, like, I've already asked you this, and I kind of remember your story, but how did this start? How did you know? Can everybody do this, or is it like a selective few?
Not necessarily, because not every psychic person is a medium, and not every medium is a psychic. So that means that some people are more in tune to that spiritual world, the spiritual realm, across the veil, whatever you call it, than others are. And sometimes it's in our bloodline, and I have to say it's in our bloodline. Because I know my mom was very in tune to spirits. She was always talking to people on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, as a little girl living on a farm in Norton, Vermont, man, some of my first memories there were spiritual mediumship type of experiences. And I was only there till I was 4 years old. But I remember distinctly asking my dad about a white horse in the barn. And my dad kept saying, there's no white horse in the barn, no white horse in the barn. But it must have been the spirit of a white horse in the barn. And then I remember we had there was a summer kitchen and a winter kitchen, which is very common in old farmhouses because they had to have a kitchen that was cool to keep the potatoes and all that stuff. Anyhow, I remember being, I don't know if I was in a playpen or what I was doing in one of those kitchens, and I remember seeing an older man walking towards me. I still remember it to this day, which is kind of weird. I must have been around 2. This older man walking towards me.
You have that memory from when you were 2?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, it's based sometimes on your first language. Like if you speak early, you remember things earlier.
Oh, I didn't speak till I was like
almost 4.
Yeah.
Because you did sign
that
language.
Explains why I don't remember anything.
Could be. But anyhow, I later on in life, my mom was showing me pictures of her dad or my dad's dad. Anyhow, I recognized the picture as that was somebody that would have been my grandfather that I saw visiting me. So those are and I remember
that's
always
crazy.
being afraid of the dark.
Well,
and you hear that a lot, kids are afraid of the dark. But to me,
I'm still little.
I used to have these I used to see the spirit of this man, and I don't think my parents ever knew that, or my family, a spirit of a man walking across the front of my bed to go look out of a window. And it was a silhouette of a man with this big black raincoat and a hat. And I felt like he was always looking out the window as if he was waiting or looking for someone. And it happened a lot at night.
That's terrifying.
It was very
That's
terrifying.
Completely terrifying.
And another time, I remember laying in bed, and I thought I could see animals running around on my bed.
Oh my God!
And I would scream, and it wasn't it wasn't dreaming. You know, in that place when you're sort of not quite
half
asleep.
Awake. Yeah,
that's when that stuff would happen.
Oh yeah.
And but it was very real for me. And I remember so many times my poor mom, I'd be screaming for my mother, and she'd come into the bedroom, and she'd rub my legs, and she'd give me some water, and tell me to just relax and go back to sleep. I didn't tell her what was going on. She just thought it was dreams. But I really feel it wasn't. It was that mediumship that was already coming in. And the other thing that happened when I tell people that mediumship class, so the mounted deer heads?
Yeah. Oh, I don't like where this is going. Yeah. They already scared me at the beginning.
Well, they scared me too, and for more reasons than one. I remember being in somebody's house. It was a hallway, and there was a mounted deer head, and the thing started talking to me.
What?
I kid you not. And it was talking to me about how it died.
How old were you?
Oh, I was we were by then. I was living in Island, so I was probably 8.
Wow.
7, 8, or 9
years old. I've never heard this story. So it
no,
told you...
I never dared tell anybody. I kept it hidden.
Yeah, you sound like a crazy person.
And I was so scared of these mounted deer heads.
Did it talk English or French?
Well, it's telepathic. It doesn't matter from the spirit world what the language is.
So you just get images?
Yeah, it would be images, or I could actually hear some talking, but it's not really talking. It's hard to describe. It's
that's really
I can connect with spirits who speak another language because I know what they're saying to me.
You get the idea.
I guess that's what it is. I don't know.
I guess it's non-conceptual.
But I used to be and I still to this day, I remember a friend a while ago that I used to go to her house, and her husband was an avid hunter. And I remember the first time she brought me to the house, she yelled at her husband, "Go shut the door to that room," because in there was about 6 mounted deer heads. And I told her
Carmen's got issues. Close the door.
Close the door. And so that stuff kind of freaked me out.
So I assume the deer you saw died from being shot.
Yes.
And you experienced that.
Yeah. So anyhow, I think
eventually, so this whole time you kind of thought you're a little crazy, I would imagine, or you're like, whatever.
Yeah, you don't.
You're young, so
yeah, I don't even remember exactly. Except I just remember the fear, being afraid,
Mhm.
and all that. But I don't know. It was kind of
But you said your mom talked to dead people too.
Yeah, and she believed in life after death, so I think that was kind of nurtured in us growing up,
Yeah, well, back then too, it was more common.
She always say, "Oh, ask so and so on the other side about this and about that." She just like nonchalant. So I think over time you sort of get wrapped up in life, and as a kid, no one else around you has that ability, so you sort of like let it go. You kind of don't. I mean, I would still have funky stuff happen to me, but I would just sort of chalk it up to dream time or something, but that got reopened up later on, and it was through a Reiki attunement. When I learned Reiki, all of a sudden I was starting to see things again and sense things, and an amazing knowing about stuff that was just like uncanny. And I started seeing that in my patients at the hospital, and it was like one thing led to the other. And when I started learning, getting out there with my intuition and going to some workshops to learn how to do readings the right way and all that, it always happened that it would be mediumship. I'm supposed to do a reading about helping someone through some questions they're asking or whatever about the future, whatever. And then some spirit would pop inside my head, and I would see them as clear as could be, and it'd be like they wouldn't leave me alone until I told the person what I was seeing. And that person always knew who it was. And it was like, this is crazy. I'm supposed to be doing psychic readings, and I'm doing mediumship. And I didn't know that's what I was. I almost felt like I was pushed to doing it.
What's a psychic reading versus mediumship?
A psychic reading is sort of like reading the energy field, helping people through like what might happen energetically in the future for them, or predicting the future, or helping them, giving them counseling that comes from someplace else. Yeah. Intuition, Yeah. It's hard to describe, but it would always end up being mediumship for me. And I was like, so I finally went and got some training done out in California because I felt like I needed to learn. If I'm going to do this, I better learn. If maybe I'm not even doing it right, or maybe I need to learn about it. And I tell people, if you have intuition, learn about it. Get as much knowledge on board as you can. And even to this day, sometimes I'll pick up a book on mediumship because I want to keep up with, make sure that I'm doing things right. And I am. I mean, there's no doubt about it because it just comes naturally. But
the part is like learning the code or the language of it.
Well, there is a language of it. There's a lot of metaphoric images that come into your head telepathically from spirit that you kind of have to decipher what that means. There's some universal ones, and then there's some individual ones.
Did you drink your water, or you just?
I'm playing with it.
You're playing with it? Okay.
Playing with the cap,
I saw you took the cap off and then put it back on.
I got to talking and I realized I'm not thirsty anymore.
Well, I am.
Well, you go ahead and drink.
I will. I want to do one of these with like whiskey or something sometime. Do you ever connect with your mom or your dad? I'm curious of that. Or is it certain spirits are kind of like transformed or gone, or?
Yes, there's all of that. So let me answer first. I have connected to my mom and dad. My dad, not for a long time, I have to admit. But they've come to me in dream time, and that's
Is that him right there?
And that's a form of mediumship, is in dream time.
I was pointing at a photo, by the way, not like he's right behind you.
Yeah.
That we know.
That in dream time, he's come to me many times, and I remember going to a...
In your dreams?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I get that all the time.
That's a form of clairvoyance.
Because I see my friend that passed all the time.
Well, the reason you see it that way is that you're sort of out of your way, so you don't have the fears or anything that come up by
it seems so normal because your logical brain's gone.
Exactly. So that's when you do the most connection.
Weird. Okay, so I'd say I experienced that.
I forgot what the question was now.
Your dad and mom.
Oh, yeah. So I had gone to a mediumship workshop a few times, and my dad would come through during mediumship sessions, and he loved music, and there was oftentimes he would come in that way. I don't know if you've ever heard of table tipping. So table tipping is people. Tipping. So there's a physical mediumship that can happen where spirits on the other side can move energy around. They can move things.
Okay.
Like when the lights turn off and turn on, or something gets moved in a room for no reason. Doors open and close.
Kind of scary.
Spirits can do that somehow. There's a And it's all based on quantum physics and all of that stuff.
I like that stuff.
So there's times when with table tipping, what happens is people put their hands lightly on a three-legged table, and they talk to spirit. So these are called an oracle. Oracle means is a means of connection. It's a tool. So the tipping table is a tool. So they connect with the spirit, and they ask the spirit to answer by tipping the table. One way will be yes, another way will be no.
Kind of like a Ouija board?
Kind of on that idea, but it's a little stool. It's actually a little footstool with 3 legs.
Weird.
My dad took off with this little stool and made the stool go all the walk. The stool literally almost walked to the piano, and I kid you not. I was like dumbfounded because I didn't believe in that kind of stuff.
It's hard to believe hearing it.
Unbelievable. And this was a medium from a very well-known school, the Arthur Findlay School in England, who was giving this workshop in Massachusetts.
So he was there? He
was the one facilitating this, and he was the medium to have spirits maneuver this table.
How did he react to the table?
And he went with it, and he was laughing. He goes, "This is your dad." And he didn't know that I had called my dad in. Like, he, as a medium, knew it was my dad.
Yeah.
I never said a word to him. And he took us to the piano, and like, he says, this is a man that loved music. He had my dad, like, down to what he looked like and what he liked, and that he played the accordion, and he loved music, he loved to sing.
It's so mind-boggling.
I'll never forget that. My mom still makes her presence known, often in dream times for me. And I know that when I used to do a lot of in-home galleries, she would follow me, and sometimes I'd be describing a spirit, and then I'd realize I'm describing my mother to the people in front of me, and it was my mother coming through.
Yeah.
But she was very intuitive, so it doesn't surprise me,
That's cool.
There was another part of that question besides mom and dad.
So do you think, like, because I feel like it's not as simple as, like, there's a person that's in the afterlife or whatever. I feel like energy is like a messy kind of thing. So I think some energy transforms and there's no longer a person in a way. Like it moves on. I mean,
well, that's the soul that will move on, and that's what we call the reincarnation, coming back into another human body. Some people don't believe in that. I think a lot of religions don't believe in that. But you know what? When you think about like past lives or times when that's happened to me before. When you go somewhere you've never been to before, oh my God, this looks so familiar. Why? And you seem to know where things are. Mm-hmm. That's that soul that's reincarnated back in your soul that probably lived in that place. Sometimes parents have said to me they lost one child, say a baby or a child, and then they have another child later. And there's an uncanny resemblance in the energy or in the personality of the next child. That's a reincarnation, oftentimes, of the first child into the second.
So, reincarnation is such a cool topic because
that's another podcast.
Yeah. Well, it's something okay. So basically, you're like attuned to speaking to the deceased when they want to. So you don't really control. Do you like set up the environment so that they can come to you?
Yeah. So it's really important to get
like invite them in, kind of like a vampire.
No, not quite like that. Oh, that'd be scary. No, you have to sort of you can't do mediumship like spur of the moment can happen, but you don't ever like do unsolicited readings for people in mediumship. So if I know I'm doing mediumship reading, I really take care of myself that day. I make sure I try to sleep, eat right, and I sort of make my body more fine-tuned.
And kind of clear your mind.
So that I don't have the distractions. And I usually, people, like, I know that meditation means different things to different people, but I like to go in that quiet place with some music. And it's basically just getting myself so quiet that I hear or I feel or I see somebody coming in.
And that, again, is the draw law. That's connecting to the energy of the present moment, which includes dead people, I would think.
Absolutely.
So it's the inner and the outer.
And I can't make, like, if somebody says they want a certain spirit there, but I don't usually ask them. I usually just go ahead and start bringing in spirits. It's kind of like crowd control. So the spirits that were living, that were very loud living, alcoholics.
I say, what about the assholes? They're still assholes.
The Italians, the people that are very loud. The French, and I'm not passing judgment.
No, I know.
But they're very social people.
Yeah.
They're going to be the first ones to come through over someone who's quiet.
So the quiet ones might not reach out as often.
Or they may reach out, but very quietly and not say much. And you have to more feel their energy. Like this happened yesterday. Excuse me. Somebody had they wanted to connect to their mom.
Yeah.
And dad. So the mom came in, and she was very talkative and showing all kinds of stuff. And then dad came in, but dad was never really saying much of anything. And then I had this. I guess he was showing me that in my head. I had this impression that he was often henpecked by his wife, by the grandmother, and he would just giggle. Like he was able to roll it off his shoulders because they were married for such a long time. It didn't even bother him anymore. But he never said much of anything. She did, and she carried the conversation through the entire through the session because she was the talker in real life and the socialite, and he did not. And so I said to the woman I was reading for, I said, "Was your grandfather soft spoken, not saying much?" She goes, "Yep, that was him." She said to me after I said all that, she goes, "Grandma always picked on him and always told him what to do and not to do." And
wow, it's hard for me to imagine that people's personalities stay intact like that afterwards. I would assume that some of the Buddhist philosophy is some of the ego dies when you die.
It does, and I feel like I've gotten to believe that there's like a spiritual schooling on the other side of the veil,
like a school.
Well, I don't know if you call it a schooling,
like it's college.
but like they're learning lessons or they're learning wisdom where they are, because it just feels like when sometimes I've connected to the same spirits over the years, and I feel the change in them, and like so suicide, for instance, that's a very difficult place, right?
Yeah,
difficult for everyone that is left behind, or mental illness that may have caused a suicide, or they just had mental illness, whatever. Like alcoholism is a form of mental illness, can be.
Yeah.
These spirits, I feel like they get like almost like some kind of counseling on the other side, because they change and they shift, and they often, they'll come back and they'll say some really snippets of wisdom that's like, where did that come from? And I feel like they must be learning something on the other side. That's just my take on all of that.
I've never thought of that. That's really...
Yeah.
I mean, the karma or whatever it follows you through lifetime after lifetime. Mm-hmm. So you're working with whatever neurotic issues you have. So I would think that includes in the afterlife. Yeah. I mean, or whatever you call it.
It's like you're being... You're in a lesson for the next life lesson.
Like no matter what, you're kind of going towards the path of love versus fear and all that bad stuff. So everything you're doing is kind of towards that path. But so that would mean like over time they get better, not worse. I wonder if they get worse.
Probably. On the other side?
Yeah.
I think they get better. I think they get better. I think they get better as far as those things, because really. We're a pure, loving being. They could be pure and loving being. They just need to let go of the earthly things that have bogged them down.
Well, I think if they're dead, that they let go a lot of them already.
So the soul is learning and the soul is readjusting, and I don't know. There's so much we don't know. Really, seriously, we don't know.
It's so cool that you get to experience all this stuff in your life.
And it's funny, going back to that telepathic communication. Sometimes the spirit is kind of strange. They'll just give me one little thing that I have to figure out who this person is. And I remember going to this big gallery. So gallery means a lot of people in one room, and I was trying to bring in some spirits for the people, the attendees.
Yeah, not art gallery.
No. And I kept getting this Irish, what's that? Irish soap.
Irish soap?
Yeah, there's some Irish, I can't think of what it is. Irish spring soap. I could smell it. I could see the bar of soap. And I knew that it was associated with a man. You could see the soap? Yeah, okay. Telepathically. Yeah. And it was associated with a spirit on the other side. An older man who was trying to come through. Yeah. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Because to me, that I thought, was this an Italian? What, or, I mean, is this an Irish person or what?
Italian.
So I finally, I said that because the room was full of Italians.
Oh, okay.
I was in an Italian household.
So it was very loud.
So I finally thought, this is not leaving me. Sometimes I won't get all the information, but spirit wants to be recognized. So this spirit wanted its relatives to know that he was here by showing me the bar of soap. So I finally said, okay, I don't know who this guy is. It's an older man. I said, but he's showing me Irish Spring soap, and he's telling me that you would know who he is. There was a burst of laughter in the room because they were all kind of related to each other, and they said who it was. It was a grandfather, and they said that there was this joke about him with Irish Spring soap. He loved the smell of it. That's what he had all the time, and he would get inundated with bars of Irish Spring soap for Christmas. So they knew him through the soap.
Wow.
I could have definitely said, put that whole thing aside and decide not to go there, right?
Yeah.
But it kept coming back in my head and coming back in my head.
Yeah, because you're like, that was ridiculous.
Because I didn't understand
it's just soap.
it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, as a medium, you don't understand the symbols. You don't understand what they're showing you. And you're not supposed to figure it out. You're supposed to just blah it out. Blah, blah, blah.
Are you ever afraid to blah it out if it's something ridiculous?
I used to be, but now I've learned that it actually has meaning for the person that I'm with.
Yeah.
So that had meaning. I could have easily said, I'm not even going to go there. I don't even know what the heck this soap thing's about. The spirit dirty or what? I don't know what it was.
That's cool.
But that's kind of how it is with the spirits. They'll show you little snippets of themselves. They'll show you how they died.
Whoa.
They'll show you some of their things that they used to like or do or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I still I'm often still in awe about all of this and wonder, where does all this come from? But I've learned to just roll with it and go with it and not even worry about it anymore.
Because you tell any, I don't know, I don't want to say normal person, but someone who's skeptical about this, they might think you're nuts or not believe you right away.
Yeah, and I've had people kind of test me before and say, oh, no, you're not getting the right information. I don't know that person, blah, blah, blah. And then they go home and then they realize that really was a person that, they had. There's something called amnesia when you're working with people. The client or the people you're doing readings for, they forget who's passed. Oh. Because they get kind of anxious during the reading.
Oh, so
they can't remember. They can't remember. If I bring specifics about someone, they don't know who it is. They can't figure it out. Then they go home and think about it, and then they realize who it is.
Wow. I say wow a lot. That's
okay.
I've been counting how many times I've said in this podcast. 6 or 7. Count with me. Well,
that's how I feel sometimes when I do the readings. Wow, where'd that come from? Woo.
I want to think of a different word than wow to respond to you. But it is it's just so crazy to this is such a, I don't know, growing up with it, how it was just such a oh, okay, my mom talks to dead people. And everyone was like, yeah, you're crazy to me. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess, and it's kind of, I wasn't sure what to think of it.
Well, the thing is,
I still don't know what to think of it.
Back a long time ago when I started doing all this stuff, I was one of the few people in this area that did all that. And so it wasn't quite as accepted. Yeah. Now people turn and they go to psychics, they go to mediums all the time, everywhere.
I feel like the market is flooded with phony psychics, and that's what makes it so skeptical.
Yeah, there is a lot of those.
Was it in Ghost? Whoopi Goldberg? Isn't she a phony psychic, and then she actually connected with the main character? Do you remember that?
No.
Really?
No.
Okay. Well.
No. But I do know. I remember going, and I don't want to name where I was, but I went to this community that had a lot of mediums there, and I decided to have a reading while I was there for a weekend with a medium, and it was unbelievable how this person was drawing at the strings, trying to bring people through for me or do a reading for me, and she was asking me more questions than giving me the information. And I'm listening to it on the way home, and I was with a friend in the car, and we were laughing because it was so just not
phony.
Yeah, I guess that's the word, phony. I don't know. And there are some people that are hard to read for.
I'm sure.
Based on their energy field.
There's people alive that are hard to read.
Yeah, so and I get that, but that was really absolutely ridiculous.
Well, some people are in it for the money, and like we were talking earlier, you're in it because you don't really have a choice.
And it's, for me, it's never been a moneymaker for me, but I finally dawned on me that doing mediumship readings, because I was really resistant to it, because I thought people thought we were crazy.
Oh, good.
And I was afraid that I wouldn't bring anybody through that somebody knew. You have all these stupid fears that come up.
The self-doubt is a very powerful thing.
But as I got rid of those fears and just got more comfortable with it, I realized that mediumship is another form of healing. It's helping people with unfinished business, with their grief and loss, with their connection to a loved one, and I see that, and it's like a soul who died suddenly of a heart attack and they never got to say goodbye, or a soul on the other side they had to remove life support, and the person living who had to do that is living with guilt.
And they know that, so they're trying to relieve that guilt somehow.
And so that spirit comes through and says, "You did the best thing for me, thank you."
So how would somebody connect with the spirits if they wanted to? Is there a method of some sort? Or you'd have to really go through a class or something?
I think mediumship needs to be, it's sort of like exercising a muscle. I feel like you really need to use it and exercise it and learn about it. There are some mediums they're just natural mediums like me from the time you're born, but there's others may have some of that skill and you can learn some of it, but you really do have to take classes to sharpen it and learn how to be comfortable. And there's a certain way of doing it that's it's an etiquette. There's an etiquette to mediumship reading, and but I think a lot of people, I've taught a lot of mediumship classes, and I can tell those in the class who are not going to be able to do that. It's a whole different energy than talking, say, to the angels, or it's a denser energy, and it's harder, a little more difficult to connect on some level, depending on where you are in your energy. You have to really be well grounded and to really connect with a spirit who lived here at one time.
I feel like I've never experienced that other than in dreams, but
well, that's where it began for me. As a kid, I had all those dreams, and then it became more and more prevalent.
Oh gosh. Well, do you think some people, like, the spirits are talking to them nonstop, but they just can't understand it or hear it? Kind of like we're talking about with empathy.
It could be. Yeah. I think there's some people that get bombarded, but again, if they don't know enough about it, they may get bombarded by it. Yeah, there's a way of, I call it like traffic control, because the spirits on the other side also want to connect with their loved ones, so they may come through and out of the blue.
But again, is it like it's not as solid as? Do you still see forms like figures walking and stuff like that, or is it still just images and words and? Oh, I see
what the spirit looks like.
Really, like all the time.
But I feel like yeah, pretty much.
That's crazy.
I can describe them sometimes what they're wearing.
Like you see them in the room or like in your head?
That's in
both.
Yeah, it's hard to say both.
Yeah?
It can be both. Oh. I think it depends on where I'm at, and a lot of it's the third eye. The third eye is your inner eyes, so you're seeing it it's hard. It's like a viewfinder. You have little viewfinders.
Like the kaleidoscope things.
Yeah, it's hard to describe, but and telepathically, they may just be showing me images of themselves, and I'm seeing them
when they look younger.
Sometimes it can be if they lived a really horrific life, but there was a time in their life where they felt very comfortable and at ease, and it was a happy time. They may often shapeshift to that time when they come through. I
wondered that, because if I were to have control of that, I wouldn't want to be like an old man, with back problems as a ghost.
No, so in the spirit world, they're not going to have any of those. They don't have the physical body, so they don't have any of that pain or suffering or any of that anymore.
Okay.
But they will show me how they pass, like sometimes. So
is it ever like violent and hard to watch?
I have learned now to turn it off when I start feeling it. I remember getting yelled at by a teacher one time in mediumship class, telling me turn it off, because I was starting to get kind of weird. I was almost taking on the spirits, like whoa. So I don't do that anymore. Now I feel it and I go thank you, and then I stop. So yesterday, I think it was I don't know. I had a lot of mediumship readings this week. Somebody was wanting to connect with someone. They gave me a name. because I hadn't brought that spirit through, so I wasn't sure. I was like, give me a name, maybe I can see it. Well, the minute they gave me a name, I felt my body going back and my head going back, and I felt stuff in my neck. It was a car, and I heard the glass of the windshield.
A car crash?
It was a car crash, and that's how that person had died. It was a car.
Oh.
Total, broke their neck.
Ooh.
And I felt that. I felt like pushing back and all of that, and then I was able to describe this person and all that. So, yeah.
That's fascinating.
So it's yeah.
You're so nonchalant about it.
Well, I am now, but I didn't used to be.
Well, since I was a kid, you were pretty
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to the dad. Well, I don't think he told us. I think he just kind of did it.
No, yeah, I think I did too. Well, you don't want to scare your kids. I remember what it was like when I was a kid, so.
Yeah, that's true. But you probably had ideas that we all had picked up on that stuff too. Well, it's part of who I am, and I feel, some people want to understand it more because they want to know who I am, but it's not really who I am. It's part of me. It's not necessary, you know what I mean? Yeah, well, you don't you don't turn it into your personality.
No,
it's just
it's a
like
gift. I'm like a satellite dish, and it just happens. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's all that. It can be tiring, when you have all these people coming at you. And
yeah, I feel like it goes back to the self-compassion where you got to have some self-care first.
Yeah, you sure do.
Fill up your cup before you start dealing with. Yeah. I mean, it's like dealing with people's issues in real life. You're dealing with people's issues in the afterlife, which can be equally as draining, if not more.
So it's kind of like that for mediumship. I need to disassociate from these spirits. I usually thank them for coming. Don't follow me home.
But yeah, that's true. It's like we said, having empathy and feeling someone else's emotions, but realizing, hey, this is their emotions, not mine. I don't have to take responsibility. That's hard.
That's really hard. And I've had to really work hard at that. And I still get emotional.
Still working on
I still cry at readings. I'll feel the sadness or the whatever it is that's going on between the client or the person on the other side.
But that's a beautiful thing.
It is. And there's some mediums that in their teaching class will say, oh, you can't show any emotion. But isn't it more real if you're showing emotions and you're transferring those emotions from someone to someone else? That's real. Well, why wouldn't you show that?
That's what real conversations are, is the emotion under the words.
Exactly. And I feel that's a sign of a really good medium if you can allow yourself to cry or laugh or whatever. And sometimes I have to present some pretty weird things. Some of the spirits might have a little profanity going on, and I have to say it like it is because that person knows them by their profanity. And you know me, I don't swear.
Yeah, you don't.
So it's like, oh boy. And I'll say, I don't know how to say this, but I'm going to say it because they're telling me to, and then I'll say it. And then they start laughing because they know exactly what it is. Like F you or something? Yeah, I need something like that.
What if it's not and it's the wrong?
Well, it hasn't happened.
Good. Well, that's cool. It's really cool ability that you have.
Well, thanks. It's like I said, I realize that it's bringing healing to people, and that's so important. So we as human beings are here to learn unconditional love on this earth. That's our journey here, and it's a tough one.